Hey, Kenny, we're picking up another emergency transmission.
Why the hell do we keep getting these?
I don't know, man. This one is coming from Epsilon Station. Should we check it out?
I don't want to.
Did somebody say ice cubes?
No, Coolerbot, nobody said ice cubes.
I'm pretty sure somebody said ice cubes.
All right, okay. All right, Kenny, we're going to go check out this Epsilon Station situation, and if it seems like a chill place, we're going to leave Coolerbot there.
Well, harsh, but, fair, I suppose. Especially now, after we only find out months later that they've been charging us for the water this whole time.
You can pay me in hugs.
Jesus fucking Christ, what the hell happened here?
Shit. Dude, we have been to a lot of rough places out in space, but this place just looks wrong. Even the perspective here looks wrong.
Dude, speaking of looking at things, look at that. Is that a rib cage? Just like
Holy shit.
just like by itself?
Maybe it's not what we think. I mean, look at all these animal corpses, and maybe this is just like a space butcher shop, like Alpha's meat market or something.
Alpha, where'd you get that name? That's interesting.
Oh, it's written on the top of that half-open door over there. Welcome to Crew Expendable. I am Guy who only calls his partner Baby Hallstrom.
And I am cool guy with cool shades Rohrbacher.
And we are just a couple of eco-terrorists rummaging through the nightstand drawer of the Alien franchise. Do we want to just jump into this fucking thing?
I don't know, man. I don't really have a whole lot. I've just been mostly playing video games. The other day, I loaded up Dark Descent again.
Okay.
And I played it for like 5 minutes, and it was one of those things where even though it's only been maybe like a week or so since I've played it, I've played like so many other things in the interim that I loaded it up and I was like, I have no idea what I'm what I'm doing, and I totally forgot how to play this game. And so like 5 minutes later, I just turned it off.
I haven't jumped back into it recently either. Largely for a similar reason of just I've been playing other stuff and just kind of like I don't know how to get back into this, but I've decided I'm going to get back into it because I was fucking around a little bit yesterday with Shadowrun Returns. Mm-hmm. Those games are pretty badass, and I don't know, maybe just the isometric perspective or something made me feel like playing some Dark Descent again, and I want to finish the game so that we can do our episode on it.
Yeah, it would be nice. But yeah, like I said, I've been jumping around. I started a much delayed, but based on your recommendation, I loaded up Soul Hackers 2 and started playing that.
Yeah.
I'm a little ways into it. I'm maybe like, 8-10 hours into it, something like that.
I saw you were playing that the other day, yeah.
It is definitely a fun game, and I'm really enjoying it, but like I got to the point where I don't remember what they call it in the game, but like the point where you like unlock the dungeons that are like inside the other party members' minds.
The Nexus or something?
I think that's what it's called, or the Axis, maybe.
The Axis, yeah.
But I unlocked that, and you have to like do one of them for like story-related missions, but it unlocks all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I know me. Now that all 3 of them are unlocked, if I don't do all 3 of them right now, I'm going to forget to do it later and not come back and do it again. Yeah. So I decided I was going to do all 3 of them. And then I did 2 of them. And I was like, man, these are really long. I want to just kind of do something else. I want to move on with the game. And so I couldn't decide whether I wanted to move on with the game or play this last dungeon. And I spent so much time trying to decide that I just went and turned it off because I couldn't decide.
So I'm at the end game. By the way, if you're 8 to 10 hours into that game, you're about a third of the way through it. It's not a very long game.
All right, that's fair.
These dungeons you're talking about are going to add some time on. As you explore them, they kind of unlock more social interactions, right, between you and the characters. That's kind of the reason to do them. But there's also missions and stuff you can do in there.
All right.
I'm actually going through. I think there's 4 levels for each, and I've cleared all of the ones for Melody and what's his face?
Arrow or
but,
the other guy.
But not Sizo. Like I have to do Sizo's last one. But then I was kind of like, I just want to get this game because I've been lingering on it for a year now, right? Almost. And I was like, I just need to get this. Yeah. I just need to beat this game and get it off my hard drive, make room for the Persona 3 reload, you know? So I was actually playing that the other morning also, trying to just get through it. I still really...
It's a fun game. It's a fun game. I like it. My one problem is that the game relies too heavily on casting magic. I wish it was easier to beat enemies by just using the attack command.
No, it's all magic.
Yeah. But it's just how the game goes, so I guess I can't complain too much.
Right. It is a Shin Megami Tensei game, so it is heavily reliant on magic,
You've got me there.
You also played, this is more relevant to the show. We got Dead by Daylight Xenomorph content coming soon. Maybe the day this episode releases for people, or maybe the day before or after. Who's to say? So you booted up Dead by Daylight. And you had a time with it, didn't you?
That is one way to put it. Time with a capital T. Yeah. To everyone out there that has played and loved Dead by Daylight, I regret to inform you that I fucking hated it.
You're still committed. You're still playing this live stream though that we're gonna do, right?
I mean, I'm gonna try my best to. I didn't delete it from my hard drive or anything, but it's other than the genre of game that it is, every single creative decision they made while making the game is the opposite one that I would have made if I was making it. You can't really engage in combat, even for defense.
Right. You're talking specifically as a survivor, right?
Yes, as a survivor. I didn't play the tutorial, because that's the thing. When you load up the game, there's, I think, 4 parts to the tutorial. They teach you the basics of playing as survivor, the basics of playing as a killer, a round of survivors with bots, and then a round of killer fighting bots.
Right.
And I got through the first 2, but I was on the bot survivor one, and I beat it, but I cannot think of a time in video games that I had less fun playing a video game than playing. I'm sure there have been times that I liked it less, but in recent memory, I don't remember a time recently that I've just had to be I just have to get through this. I just have to get through this while I was playing it. Even with the bots, everything about it drove me crazy. Like I said, you can't really engage in combat meaningfully.
Right.
There's no map. It's impossible to figure out where everything is. You can't heal yourself. Because I was playing with bots,
sure.
I'm not the one that actually opened the door to escape. One of the bot characters did.
Okay.
Because since there's no map, I had no idea where anything was. So I was just running around trying to find everything. One of the other characters opened the door and the game told me, get to the door before the time limit or you're fucking dead. And I'm like, okay. Where's the door though? I literally didn't even know what direction I needed to go in to get it.
Right.
And so I literally had to run to the edge of the map and just run around in a big circle until I came across it. And I was like, this sucks. And then I just turned it off.
So I will say you don't have to survive those bot matches to just get through the tutorial parts. Because I didn't succeed in either. As a survivor or as the killer in quote unquote winning, hitting the win condition for either. And then it just lets you into the real game. And once you're in the real game, you find out that there's a lot more to it than just what the tutorial shows you. I still have very, very little experience with this as well, but you can get med kits, first aid kits that you can carry. You can bring an item into the dungeon with you and you can heal yourself that way. Obviously, it takes
Good.
time. Heal
Yeah.
other people. There's also like toolkits and things like that. There's a lot of customization options for the survivors. So there's more to it than just what you experienced in that tutorial. And those those bod matches were fucking brutal. Playing an actual game, which I've only done a couple of, very different experience than the bot matches. So I hear where you're coming from, but I do think that there's a lot of stuff in the game you would be into, and maybe you just need to be playing as a killer.
Well, the problem is that playing as the killer is in first person. So,
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I think you could do it as a xenomorph, though.
so I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where like if it was my decision, I wouldn't play this game again.
Okay.
But since there is alien content for it coming out,
You have to.
I am by definition, I'm going to have to give it a try again at some point. And so like, I am still willing to because like I said, I didn't even make it all the way through the tutorial. So I am like, since I have to anyway, I am willing to give this game like a classic, the old college try.
Right.
But like, if it were up to me, I wouldn't be, but it's not up to me. So I will be.
Yeah. Or the other thing is like, you should just play Evil Dead with me.
Yeah, you keep telling me to do that, and I keep reminding you that I don't care about Evil Dead as a franchise.
Yeah, but you don't have to. The game is good on its own, is what I'm saying. It's not good because it's an Evil Dead game. It's a good game. That is also an Evil Dead game.
Also, I'd like to point out that part of your attempt at getting me to play the Evil Dead game the other day was that like the characters from the reboot that you really like are in it.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that the characters from the reboot that I really liked are DLC for the game. They're not in the game. Okay.
Yeah, but I have them, so I'll be Mia and you can be Scotty.
Okay. That's how it works. Then.
From Evil Dead 1, the other guy I play as. I only
Of course,
play as
yes.
Scotty and Mia. All right. Enough about all of this. I don't know.
Yeah, we're kind of getting off track, so let's get to it.
It's almost like we're not super jazzed to talk about what we're about to fucking talk about, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, slyer people than us may want to be able to constitute this as, us stalling, I guess would be a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. We are definitely stalling.
So let's just get to it then.
Sure.
Neal, what are we here to talk about today?
We are here to talk about Alien Bloodlines, the first Alien series published by Marvel Comics in, I don't know what year, 2021? Yeah, looks like 2021.
That is correct, yes.
Written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, with art by Salvador LaRocca, colors by Guru EFX, letters by VC's Clayton Cowles, and a cover by In Hyuk Lee,
who I believe did the covers for all 6, but I would like to point out to you, Neal, that we're not talking about Alien Bloodlines. We're talking about the first 3 issues of Alien Bloodlines.
Right, issues 1 through 3, sure.
Yeah.
We're talking about half of Alien Bloodlines on this episode, half on another episode that we will be equally psyched to get into, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. It's a comic book.
It's not. I was going to say it's not as bad as I remembered, but that implied I actively didn't like it last time.
Right.
I got more out of it this time than I did the first time I read it. But spoiler alert for the end of the episode, I still thought this comic was pretty mid.
I do think it warrants a reread to sort of understand everything that's going on. We are sort of thrust into this new era with these new characters and like all of this new shit, and we just have to like catch on. And look, we talked about LaRocca's artwork on the Alien Annual episode we did a couple weeks ago.
We sure did.
The art in that was better than in this.
I will agree to that. In certain parts, there were certain things in the Alien Annual where I thought some of the faces and some of the way he drew things related to characters looked worse than it did in this book. But overall, I will agree with you that the art in there was probably better.
The art really does drag this down. And like we had it, we talked about it on the previous episode. Aaron from Instagram pointed out to us that LaRocca is a serial tracer, and you can't unsee it now, right?
Yep.
Like there's even moments within this book, I think, where he uses the same xenomorph over and over again.
And it's especially wild now that I've seen a picture of the guy and I'm like, oh, like the main character of this comic is literally just what the artist looks like.
Yeah.
Now that I know this, literally every single illustration of Gabriel Cruz in this book, I'm picturing in my head the photo reference of himself that he took to be able to just trace over the image, you know?
Yeah. The art really drags this down, and like there's a lot of bad like perspective issues and things, right? Proportions are off, and it makes for a messy read. I do think there's some interesting storyline stuff in here, but I don't know who I'm rooting for in this comic either, because everyone is just a piece of shit. A little bit.
That's true. That's
right.
Very true. Yes.
We should get into it in more details.
Well, then in that case, I'll start off by just saying the cover for the trade, which is also the cover of the main cover of issue 1. Like, I'm just going to come right out and say it. It is straight up one of the best pieces of Xenomorph art I've ever seen.
Really fucking sick.
I genuinely would classify this cover as iconic.
Right. And again, the cover by Inhyuk Lee. Very cool.
He does all 6 of the covers, and he draws xenomorphs like nobody's business, like maybe the best in the business as far as I've ever seen people do personally myself.
Yeah, they look pretty fantastic.
But like with LaRocca, who does the interiors, his humans don't look as good.
I do want to say he's done, or we have a lot of variant covers for these. So issue 1 also has a variant cover by David Finch and Frank Darmada, a variant by Patrick Gleason, a variant by Salvador LaRocca and Guru EFX, which it looks pretty good. Don't know who the original art was from.
Yeah, and it's fine, whatever.
And a variant by Steve McNiven and Laura Martin. All of the issue 1 variants look fantastic. I really like this Patrick Gleason one. It like feels reminiscent of like the Alien 3 movie poster or something.
Is issue 1 the one that has a variant cover by Greg Horn?
Peach Momoko did a variant. Todd Nauk and Rachel Rosenberg did a variant. Ron Lim and Israel Silva did a variant. And Scotty Young did an adorable fucking variant that I absolutely love. Greg Horn, I'm not seeing him in the trade at least.
Yeah, it was probably actually Icarus, because spoiler alert for what happens in Bloodlines. I was looking up information on Icarus because a certain character in this comic also shows up in that book.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm talking about the female xenomorph.
Right, of course. The character, right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, let's just dig into this thing. So this book takes place in the year 2200. Okay. So that's what, 21 years after the Hadley's Hope incident? 2179, 8199.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. 21, 22 years. I'm not here to do math.
Yeah, it takes place 21 years after the events of Aliens. And this comic also has a secondary narrative that has like a flashback to a previous mission that happened 20 years prior. So in 2180, i.e. 1 year after Aliens.
Okay.
But yeah, this comic takes place, it starts off in January of 2022, or 2200 rather. And then over the course of this issue, we cut to February and then March. And then the rest of the comic, as far as I know, takes place in March.
Right. So that 2180 is referenced in the annual. That's when Gabriel Cruz encounters an alien, right?
No, that was the events of Alien Annual number 1, 2022 take place 7 years before the main story of this comic.
Right. I'm looking at the splash page for that. And it says in 2180, Defense Agent Gabriel Cruz would encounter the alien, blah, 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 blah. 13 years later, anti-Wayland vigilantes have overrun Nishimura Station.
So the events of Alien Annual #1 take place 7 years prior to the main events of this comic.
And then
the flashback events of this comic take place 20 years prior.
Right. 13 years prior to the annual.
Yeah, before the events of Annual 1. Yes.
We got it all worked out. The artwork will be a timeline. It won't be.
It won't be. That's correct.
I'm going to find the ugliest fucking drawing of a human I can to make the artwork for the. I'm real mad about how bad this comic book looks because I think that there's some good like ideas in it. But yeah, it is just making me think there's something wrong with my eyes a little bit.
I will go on record right now. I don't think the bad parts of the artwork are as bad as you think they are.
I'm going to talk a lot about them.
So overall, it sounds like I'm probably a bit warmer on the artwork than you are, but I will, make sure to point out that the artwork is easily the weak point of this comic for me.
Right. Let's rip through this. We aren't going panel by panel, right? We open with Gabe Cruz, who we met in the annual on the show.
Mm-hmm. Although, to point out to the listeners, again, this is actually when we meet him, because the annual, even though it takes place before this comic, came out after this.
Right.
It was assumed that readers of the annual already know who he is.
Yeah, but this is the world's first real introduction to Gabe Cruz. All the people who lined up to buy this Marvel Alien book at their comic book store on a Wednesday. All right, so this book opens with Gabriel Cruz kind of... We're seeing a vision of something that happened to him where he was like, we know it's him. I'm going to spoil it here. This issue, the 3 issues we see don't reveal it's him. It's fucking him. You can tell, right? Mm-hmm. You can put the context clues together. Opening his eyes inside a sleep pod and seeing on the outside of the pod, it says alien inside, like painted on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's recounting this dream that is always begins in the dark. And, I don't know. He's writing some fucking Linkin Park lyrics here about how the dark is a truer shade than just the absence of light or whatever, right?
And then he's talking about how like she is calling out to him from the dark, and like she's trying to get to him, and he never really says who she is, but like he doesn't want to get to her, but he knows she's going to sooner or later.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not like taking shots at Linkin Park. I unironically enjoy Linkin Park music.
Linkin Park was one of my go-tos back in the day.
Yeah, man.
They're not anymore, just because after Chester died, I found out that even to this day, I get too emotional hearing his voice, and so I can't listen to them anymore.
Yeah, man. R.I.P. Chester. I got to tell this story, dude. There's this bar that I would sometimes hang out at after work. Sports bar, like patio bar place, and they had a Touch Tunes jukebox, right?
All right.
And there was this guy, and he's just like looking down on his phone, and he's just like looks like he's like had a day, right? He's like real into his feels, and I see he's like messing with something on his phone, and then he puts his phone down, and over the jukebox, "In the End" by Linkin Park starts.
Hell yeah.
And I see this guy just like close his eyes and just get real into it, and I was like, wow. This guy needed this right now.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. I mean, that's a classic fucking song, baby.
I was like, you're my hero. And then I put in the 10-minute long piano emo song, Constantine by Something Corporate.
I'm sure everyone loved that.
Well, I'm just trying to get my money's worth at that point,
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway, let's talk about this comic book. People are already turning the episode off.
So, the reason this is significant, like you said, he's like, talking about this dream that he's having, and spoiler alert, the reason he's talking about this is because he is in a therapy session with a bishop android who is his therapist.
That's right. Yeah. And not just any bishop android. I believe this is specifically a bishop android that was on a mission with him at one point.
I don't know if it's necessarily exactly the same bishop. They don't really specifically say that,
right?
But he was on a mission with a bishop at one point, and so it's kind of implied it might be the same one. But anyway,
we do have this splash page of a bunch of Xenos and facehuggers kind of writhing around very clearly cut and pasted.
Yeah, that's correct.
Because they're all kind of outlined still, you know.
Yeah.
And this is our first real image of her, right?
Yep, sure is.
I don't know what to call her.
Xenopedia, the article for this character on Xenopedia refers to her as the goddess.
The goddess. Okay. Now tell me, does the Xenopedia article, remember there was some, I don't think any real controversy, but kind of a controversy about where the goddess came from, if the goddess was the character from Icarus? Does Xenopedia clear that up?
Well, here's the thing. No, because like at the bottom of all of the articles, it has like a, featured in and like lists all of the works this character or this place or whatever is mentioned or like, brought up in. And the article for the goddess only has Bloodlines listed as what it's been in. However, if you go to the page on Alien Icarus, like the comic book,
right,
it is woefully underfilled out, and they only have information from like the first like 1 or maybe 2 issues on that page. So the fact that the goddess is not listed as being in Icarus on her page could be because it's not intended to be the same character, or could be just because the Icarus page wasn't filled out, and so nobody went and added that to the goddess's page. Who knows?
We got to get this figured out. I've been trying to get into the AVP fandom Discord. Mm-hmm. And just the link doesn't work. The embedded thing doesn't work on their website. Doesn't work for me anyway. So if you get in, invite me. All right, because we got to get this thing. We got to get this thing filled out.
Yeah, like I have no idea if it's the same character that we already talked about in Icarus. Like I personally am of the belief that it's probably not, just because narratively it doesn't really make sense to me. However, I am the only person I've ever come across who's had this conversation that has come down on the no, they're not the same thing side. So I realize I'm probably wrong, and it likely is the same character that showed up in Icarus. But like, to me, that doesn't really make sense. But whatever, that doesn't matter.
Well, she doesn't really appear in this. She only appears in visions and hallucinations. Right. So I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, and she also even kind of looks different in this book than she did in Icarus, which is part of the reason why. Like, all right, all the listeners out there, as long as you're not like, doing a PowerPoint or like driving or whatever, I want you to close your eyes and picture, ooh la la, a sexy lady, but make her look all xenomorphy. Like she has the, like, the hatching and the ridges and everything. And she's a lot more on the mechanical side of the spectrum. And then give her multiple pairs of like goat horns that like extend out and like wrap around each other, so that when you look at her head kind of has the profile of like a moth with its wings outstretched. And she doesn't have the long head like a drone, and she has eyes and they're glowing yellow. And that's basically what she looks like.
Yeah, but if you look at the cover for Icarus 6, like, it is very clearly, like, well, there's 2 of them, One's in his dreams, and then one of them essentially exists.
Well, if you recall, I believe we discussed on that episode of Icarus that her appearance on the cover and her appearance in the comic were not the same.
Right, but we saw her, but we saw her throughout the issues where she appeared, continuing to sort of mutate and change. So, like, I think it's safe to say that where we left off on the last page of Icarus isn't like her final form,
And again, like I mentioned earlier, I understand that I'm the only person that thinks they're not the same creature, but like narratively, it doesn't make any sense because, like you said, in this book, she's just like a hallucination. Who knows if she's even real? And then all of a sudden, for no reason at all, she just shows up at the end of the comic. Like, come on.
Yeah, I have a weird theory about this, but I think that we'll have to talk about it at the end of the following episode. But basically, I think that Xenomorphs probably experienced all points in time at the exact same time, So if she, even though she doesn't get created until the future, she still exists in the present for them. And I'm basing this on absolutely nothing. Let's talk about this book.
Yeah, we keep on starting to, and then we'll get one sentence in, and then we get sidetracked. So, like I said, he's in therapy. He's talking to his bishop therapist about these dreams of the goddess that he's having. And then later on, we find out that he's not the only person having these dreams. Multiple people have been having the dreams of the goddess, and they've been having these dreams after they get face hugged. And the comic kind of implies that it happens to everyone, but only a couple of people get face hugged in this book, and then it never gets brought up again in any of the other books. So who knows if that's what they were trying to state or not.
Right.
But that's the narrative purpose for why she's in here. Every time he talks about his dreams, she's in them.
The other big thing is Gabriel Cruz is retiring from his role as like head security officer for Epsilon station. Like they're giving him like a huge send off, and they're like cheering for him, and like he's like, I love working here. Wayland Yutani's the fucking best. Wayland Yutani is the good guys. The detractors and the naysayers are just full of shit. I love this place. I love this company. This place is amazing and awesome.
Yeah, they're the good guys is the line he uses, I believe, and I laughed out loud when I read that.
Don't listen to the conspiracy theorists, the detractors, and the naysayers. Wayland Yutani are the good guys. Crucial work for the survival of our species. And then a panel of the alien inside pod, right? Yeah. People in this room are going to save the world someday. Like, is he being genuine or is he brainwashed? I don't fucking know. I'm taking him as face value on this because he's kind of a piece of shit.
I have been under the impression that because, like, you know, this comic, a big part of the narrative has a flashback to 20 years prior. And 20 years prior, not only was he in, like, you know, a Wayland Yutani security guy, but he had like already been one for a while because he was in command in that flashback 20 years prior. So I am of the belief that he is being serious because he'd been kind of brainwashed, because he's like a lifer that's worked for them, like, you know, presumably since he was allowed to sign on. So he's probably just been, like, you know, drilled and brainwashed and taught over and over again that they're the good guys. And so he's just mindlessly repeating it without really thinking about it at all. That's my guess.
Sure. Makes sense. This next scene, we see his son, right? Pulling up. His son with his girlfriend. What's his son's name? Danny.
And I should point out that I believe this happens on Earth, because it was his retirement party, and he says he's going to go down to Earth and, like, you know, spend time with his son. And so his son and his son's girlfriend, Iris, are pulling up outside of Cruz's house on Earth.
Yeah, and Danny is not looking forward to this. He's like, Wayland, you're trying to kill our family, and he just let them. He practically is them. And she's like, yeah, I know, but we need his stuff. Remember, Intel says the thing is going to be in his nightstand drawer. Real bad.
I don't know where they would have gotten that intel from or how they would have known that.
Yeah, I have no idea either. Maybe I don't remember. Maybe they're tapped into the bishop. I'm not sure. Right. Maybe they have his psych records or something. This is, I hate this so much. I hate everything about this. First of all, this is where I'm like, this art fucking sucks. The perspective is terrible. All these backgrounds, this insane architecture he's trying to render. When you get to the interiors of Gabe's house, there's just like these weird platforms that just exist with like two chairs on them. It's terrible, and it's ugly, and it's poorly drawn. He lives in like an MC Escher painting. All right.
Well, I'll set the stage then. Narratively, what happens is Gabe is at home and he's waiting for his son to come by, who knocks on the door. They come in, they talk for like 10 minutes. And we find out that Gabe had another son named Lucas, and it is implied that Lucas has since died. Later on, we find out that that is correct. He did, in fact, die.
Look at this garbage space bathroom he has on Earth. I hate this.
And that's a big part of the reason why Danny is so mad at his father about it. But they're talking for like 10 minutes, and then Danny goes to use the bathroom. And then right after that, Danny's like, look, I gotta go. And so he they get into an argument, and then Danny storms out. And then
yeah, we're brushing over a couple of big things. The first,
and then we find out when Danny gets back into the car that he swiped Gabriel's security clearance card, and turns out that's why he was there the whole time. So.
Right. The big thing we skipped is that Danny and Iris call each other baby and babe exclusively, and I hate couples who do that. I'm sorry. If you're a babe couple, get fucked.
I would like to say that I find it very funny how you're like, we glossed over a couple of important things and then mentioned that. I cannot stress to the listener how not important that fact is.
It's going to continue in the future. I have a feeling Philip Kennedy Johnson also hates babe couples.
Because of what happens to them.
Yeah, he's like these they can and will get fucked. But there's another thing. Where is it? Oh yeah, Danny starts going off about how Weyland-Yutani is literally killing the world, and Epsilon Station, where his dad lived, is where they do their cyber warfare programs and everything. And then Gabriel Cruz says, "Danny, please tell me you're not one of those anti-corporate pro-UA nut jobs." Like, he's a fucking capitalist. This guy,
yeah.
This is the scene where I was like, I hate both of these people in this conversation for different reasons. You know, I don't know who I'm rooting for here. They can both get fucked anyway.
But there's one other thing that happens here.
Yeah.
While Cruz, so I got to keep, there's two Cruzes in this scene. While Gabe is drinking his beer, waiting for Danny to come back to the bathroom, he kind of starts, looking around at the photos hanging on his wall and reminiscing. And he's looking at a photo specifically of his entire old squad that later on we find out is the squad from the important stuff that happened 20 years prior.
Right.
And Neal, you have the comic open, correct?
I do.
All right. I want you to go to the actual panel where not just the one when he's looking at the picture, but the panel where it shows the entire picture of the whole squad.
Yeah, I see it.
Look at the guy all the way to the right.
With the okay.
He has a beard and he's wearing a pair of sunglasses, and each one of the lenses have the Predator target mark, 3 dots on them.
Yeah.
I love that guy. It looks like he's having a great time. And my designation of cool guy with cool shades from the beginning of the episode, that's who I was referring to.
Hell yeah.
I love that guy. He looks like a party guy and that he's having a great time.
He's a cool guy with cool shades. We also see in this picture a bishop, maybe not the same bishop, but a bishop that was rocking with these Weyland-Yutani troopers.
Yeah, and bishop, bishop, whichever one appears in the comic at any given time, just the concept of bishop is an important character to this comic, and it's wild because he shows up a lot, and it's bishop in this comic looks enough like Lance Henriksen for you to be able to go, oh, that's Bishop, but not close enough to prevent you from going, that's kind of a weird looking Bishop.
Yeah, well, it's a trace to Bishop, right?
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, Danny and Iris, Danny and Iris squeal away in their car.
In their fucking Tesla or whatever.
And Gabriel's just pissed off and brooding, and I think he's cooking sausages on the grill or something like that. Anyway,
he said something like, I can't believe how much, he said this maybe earlier, I just want to have a beer with my son and talk like we're friends. Yeah. And it's you seem to have been absent and you fucked up, man. I'm not feeling bad for this absentee father.
That is, again, why he's trying to reconnect with him, because he realizes now he's been an absent dad.
Yeah, and I know that there's a reason for it that we're going to get to in this series, but still.
I believe at this point there is another therapy session, and earlier on in the first one that the comic opens up with, he he doesn't remember most of what happens, but he's like slowly starting to remember more of it.
Right.
And at the very beginning, he's talking about how he had a brief mention of somebody saying, "I took leave days," and he didn't really like know what it meant or know what the context is. And then now in this therapy session, he's talking about how he like remembers the context of it.
Yeah.
Turns out there was some guy talking about how he had taken leave for vacation, but somebody else called off sick right before they went on this mission. So this guy's leave got pulled and was sent on the mission instead of that other guy.
Yeah.
And then, spoiler alert, everyone on this mission except Cruz gets killed by a Xenomorph.
Right.
And
this trooper is relaying this information to Cruz while they are both fucking
like stuck in resin,
resined up
and
in a xenomorph hive with ovomorphs and face huggers and a xeno walking in, a hooved xeno.
I believe the dude that's talking about how he has I took leave days.
Yeah.
I believe that guy mentions that the dude who called in sick was named Reynolds.
Yes.
And Tom Reynolds is the name of the guy that was giving the speech at Cruz's retirement party.
Oh, damn.
I'm pretty sure it is the same person. And like right now, they point this out and like it just seems like set dressing or like character development or whatever. But like all this stuff will actually become plot relevant later on in the book. Which is why I'm mentioning it.
I'm glad because I missed that. You're right, because he does talk to because Reynolds will come back, right? I think it's the same guy. This is what I'm saying. Like I think there's good writing behind this ugly artwork.
Speaking of plot relevant stuff that comes back later, another plot point is introduced here that, as far as I know, is completely dropped and never gets brought up again outside of this.
Yeah.
We find out that Cruz did not voluntarily retire. He was forced to retire because he has some kind of unspecified illness.
Right.
We never find out what the illness is. As far as I know, it never gets mentioned again, and it only gets brought up just because he's pissed off about it. And then, like I said, nobody ever mentions it again. And I was like, why was that even here then?
So this is an Earth bishop that he's talking to, not the space bishop he was talking to before.
That is correct.
But there was a comment about he's like, I can send your files and stuff down to another bishop unit, and so you'll see me again on Earth. So it's essentially like he's seeing the same person, but the mannerisms are a little different. This bishop says, folks in this region prefer a lighter touch than they do on Epsilon Station, but neither of the bishops he's spoken to are the bishop from the mission. We know that also from here, so that's settled. I don't know. I have feelings about this, the idea of this Weyland-Yutani synthetic being his therapist, you know? It doesn't, like, doesn't seem
like
trustworthy.
We know from reading it that it's very likely that someone on the WY end is like reading the transcripts of all these sessions.
Oh, almost.
But like,
guaranteed.
But again, Cruz is like a lifer guy.
Right.
He either doesn't think they were doing it. He either believes that they wouldn't do that, or more likely it never would have occurred to him that maybe they would. Or if somebody was like, oh, they're totally doing that, his response is, they're not doing that because they can't, not realizing that just because they're not allowed to doesn't mean they wouldn't, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But also I should say, when he retires, the comic cuts from January to February, and then from him meeting his son to this point, that's February, and then from there it cuts here to March.
Right.
And then, like I said, I believe the rest of the comic takes place here, or the rest of the comic that we read, because we only read the first 3 issues.
Right. And we got a lot to tear through still, so let's get up to Epsilon Station.
All right. Well, actually, that's pretty much where we are right now.
Yeah. There's a couple of security guards talking, man and a woman. The guy's playing with his cat. They have some witty banter. She says, a maintenance drone just docked. Those don't dock. Those just like grab onto rails outside. And he's like, trust me, it's fine. Cut to the door opening and the woman getting her head blown off by a shotgun.
Yep. And then the door opens and then she looks out the door and then literally everything from her bottom jaw and up is literally blown off of her head and turns into mist.
Yeah. And then like 4 bullets get pumped into the guy who was playing with the cat. The cat does seem to get away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the terrorists. It's Danny and Iris and 3 other people. And Danny's like, damn it, Iris. Why, we brought restraints. And she's like, he was reaching, baby. We didn't have a choice. Like immediately painting her, like her as like bloodthirsty. She killed them for no reason, right?
And then they take the security guards, like, it's like an ID card, but it's built into like a wristband.
Mm-hmm.
And they like copy the security clearance to everyone and go into, because remember, as you alluded to earlier, they think this station does like, cyber related stuff.
Right.
And so they go into what they believe to be the server farm and open it up, and turns out there's a bunch of like biolab testing tubes with what looks like lab grown xenomorphs in it.
Yeah, it's yeah, they're gonna go and take pictures and put all the stuff on the internet and then plant bombs and blow up Epsilon Station, and then good guys win, baby, as Danny says. But he's not saying like good guys win, baby, right? He's saying good guys win, baby, to his girlfriend.
They go in there to take the pictures of like these animals, and then they find a couple of like scientists that are working in the biolab. One of them is like the dude in the lab coat is named Dorsey. Right. And the other lady, I don't think she's ever given a name, but I called her Lori because she looks like Laurie Metcalf.
Her name is, that's so funny. Her name is Jackie, which was
oh nice,
like Laurie Metcalf's character Aunt Jackie on Roseanne.
Okay, so her name is Jackie, but it's Laurie Metcalf. That's what I called her in the notes.
You think you think Salvador Larroca was like, I'm just going to trace Laurie Metcalf as Jackie for this character named Jackie? I
mean, here's the thing. I think that character legitimately looks like Laurie Metcalf. So do I think he traced an image of her? Yeah, maybe. But anyway, she gets really pissed off and activates some kind of security measure that breaks open all of the test tubes.
No,
and
it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't. Well, I mean, all of the creatures break out of the test tubes.
Well, she vocally says security protocol, whatever, lockdown, and then she gets shot, but the bullets go through her, or they make her fall back and crash into one of the tube that breaks out some face huggers, and then everyone starts opening fire during all of this chaos, and I think that's how other stuff gets opened.
Well, I will say, okay, while I may have missed that panel, I don't want to say that's a correction we didn't need to make, but like the result is the same. So.
The result is the same, but the difference is she didn't say a command that made everything break out. She was trying to keep everything contained, and the terrorists caused everything.
Now I get what you're...
Yeah.
Okay, yes. I will agree then that, yes, you are correct. Okay, now I get what you're saying. Right. But yeah, anyway, Laurie Metcalf fucks all of them over, and issue 1 ends with them getting attacked by facehuggers.
Right. Yeah, including we see Danny with a gun and a facehugger leaping at him. End of issue 1. Issue 2, we pick up still on Epsilon Station with a man and a young girl like hiding in a closet.
And I got real confused about this part, because if you look at what the actual guy looks like, he literally looks like Gabriel Cruz with a beard.
Sure, like from the annual.
And so I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like, why does Gabriel Cruz have a beard? Why is this girl calling him grandpa? Yeah. And then I realized, I don't think this is supposed to be Gabe. I think he just reused the character design for this guy.
Something like that. I don't know. Basically, grandpa's like, stay here. Everything's going to be okay. granddaughter, you're going to be safe. And when I say granddaughter, I mean, this is like a Newt's age child, right? This is like a 7 or 8 year old girl, maybe. And Grandpa just kind of goes off and it gets killed or something as she like cries and sings a song about
like
and farm animals trying to keep herself calm. It's a fucked up scene.
We don't see specifically what happens to him, although that character is on screen later on in the book. So we eventually do find out what had happened to him here.
Was that him or was it the other? I don't remember.
But yeah, it's like the guy that shows up later is this guy.
Okay.
But then I believe from there it cuts back to Earth at Cruz's house.
Yeah.
And Ted Reynolds, I think that's a guy's last name, basically shows up and tells Cruz that he's a huge dumbass and he's a big piece of shit and he fucked everything up and now he has to go fix it. And Cruz is like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Ted, his old boss from Epsilon Station, who, when the lockdown happened, had his pod ejected by default. Like, he didn't choose to. He just got rocketed down to Earth when this happened, apparently.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. This guy who was given the speech at his, retirement party is like...
And was a member of his old squad.
And apparently dodged the mission that caused everybody else to die
by being
squad,
sick,
by quote-unquote being sick, right?
Well, they haven't revealed yet that it was on purpose. So.
Okay, I didn't remember that it was, but I assumed it was, because he's a Weyland-Yutani employee, and this is an Aliens book. He's like, guess what? Your dumbass son and his dumbass girlfriend stole your security clearance out of your fucking drawer, and they went up to Epsilon Station, and now everything's fucked up.
Yeah, and Ted's even like, you screwed this one up, Gabe, and it was like, how? It wasn't Gabe's fault that Danny stole that security card. How the fuck is this Gabe's fault?
Right.
But whatever.
He says we learned that Iris Humphreys recruited Danny from the Grant Corporation, which is where Danny was working security. Iris Humphreys is a known member of the Minute Hand movement. That's the organization that has, attempted to destroy Epsilon Station and messed everything up.
Also, side note, did you recognize that name?
Iris Humphreys or the Minute Hand?
No, the Minute Hand movement.
No, should I?
The eco-terrorist quote-unquote group that attacked the station, the Nishimura at the beginning of Alien Annual 1 was called the Second Hand Movement.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
And so it's believed, like, there's postulation online that maybe it's like, the group, but they changed names, or like maybe after the events at Nishimura, the Second Hand Movement didn't exist anymore, so someone started like a successor group or something like that. But yeah, turns out they're related somehow.
Okay.
There's just a little fun bit of trivia for you.
Yeah. All right. It did sound familiar, but I was like, I don't know if that's the one or not. Minute Hand is a little clunkier. Second Hand Movement makes more sense in a lot of different ways.
I agree.
Anyway. Reynolds here is like, you're going in to fix this. Alpha is your legacy at the company. It's the only reason you're not in prison right now. So you have to go in and get Alpha, because if you don't, the whole station is just going to like descend and burn up in the atmosphere, like to destroy all the evidence. Right. You get to, and he's correct. Like, well, I can also save my son, right? And he's like, well, yeah, but you better save Alpha. And then get your son if you can, He's like, you can save your son if you have time, but he's not the priority. And Cruz is like, well, I'm only doing it if I can save my son. And Ted's like, I don't give a shit what your reasons are. I'm telling you that if you don't get out with the Alpha, then you're going to be in prison for the rest of your life. Right. This is fun. He says, Reynolds is like, we'll give you 2 defense agents, young guys. And he says, I don't want kids with mothers and loved ones. Give me 5 synths.
And then the dude says, no, you're getting these 2 guys and that's it. Like, I don't know why you thought this was a negotiation or a discussion. I'm telling you that's how it is.
But 5 synths, you think he was like, give me the steel team?
I mean, it's certainly possible.
But it is, I don't know. I do think it's kind of fun that he's like, give me 5, like instead of two humans, give me 5 synthetics and we'll take care of this. That seems like a better idea too, but
It certainly does. I mean, Cruz mentions later that humans are cheaper than combat synths, which I think is the reason why they went with people.
Yeah. He does mention that humans are cheaper still, but
so
why didn't he just ask
humans,
for like one? Give me one synth, right? Like he should have negotiated. Like 5 seems like a lot to ask if they're that expensive.
Speaking of the 2 people that he gets paired up with, we see the 2 of them and Cruz on the ship flying to Epsilon Station.
Yeah.
And these 2 guys are just being huge assholes to Cruz for literally no reason at all.
They're like, look at this old man, probably just trying to get like a bump. He's never seen combat or whatever. Like, motherfuckers, you don't know what this man has seen.
And it's just, that is, again, an absolutely insane choice to make, but whatever.
This guy once spent a month growing a beard in a supply closet.
That's right. And then they land on Epsilon Station, walk in, and then they see a whole bunch of damage all over the place and blood splatter all over. And these guys are like,
casings.
Oh, they're all like, oh no, what the fuck is this? Oh no. And Cruz is like, were you seriously not briefed on this? What the fuck is wrong with you guys?
And they're like,
oh, there was a video brief, but we just figured it was another bug hunt, so we didn't fucking watch it. Dumbasses.
Again, I don't like that. Look, I don't think that Gabriel Cruz is a guy to root for, but I don't like that the story seems to be trying to make everybody around Gabriel Cruz just a little bit more insufferable to make him look good by comparison.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're trying to frame him as the good guy in this group of people.
Yeah, it ain't working so far.
But yeah, like I said, these 2 dudes, they're the 2 biggest dumbasses alive. Right. And so because of that, I don't feel it's a spoiler to tell all of the listeners that both of these dudes get killed by xenomorphs.
Yeah, very soon, right? Because they get into the lab area and they see like some of these corpses of these weird animals and stuff that have had experiments done on them. They see the door to the alpha room is open. I guess we didn't mention that the Minute Hand people were trying to get into the alpha room.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is something we forgot. They were trying to get into the alpha room and they were access denied. And that's like what attracted the attention of Dorsey and Jackie to come out of the lab to talk to them. And that's when everything started happening.
But they find somebody in like, they find nothing in the alpha room. The sample's been cleared out. Looks like it's more of just like a refrigerator. I think there's a room and then there's samples inside it. But they do find somebody who claims she's not infected, who is wearing a lab coat and claims her name is Dorsey and that she's an intern. And I didn't fucking keep track of the fact. I couldn't tell who this was because the art's not very good and the red coloring on these pages doesn't allow you to like recognize anybody's detail. This is this is what's her face.
This is Iris.
This is Iris pretending to be an intern named Dorsey. Dorsey.
That is correct.
Dorsey was the guy that she got the guy's lab coat.
That is correct. Also, just a little side note that thought I'd like to sprinkle in because this point in the comic is when it happens. The panel where Cruz discovers the open alpha door makes me realize something else about LaRocca's art. Pretty much every time he draws a human, like 98% of the time, their mouths are almost always closed, which I think is another reason why his human art looks so weird.
Yeah, whenever they open their mouths, they look all kind of fucked up.
Well, and that, like, the fact that there is one drawing here with Cruz, like, his mouth open in surprise, me seeing his mouth open made me go, oh my God, he like never does that. Wow. And that's what made me realize that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway,
he really,
like I said,
I'm flipping back. It's very, very rare that it's pronounced. There's a lot of closed mouths or smiles. Like we didn't talk about that. The crowd that was smiling at the retirement party, like the audience, it was so fucking creepy, dude.
Oh, there's another great shot of Dorsey / Iris coming up that really makes me laugh. This point here is where Dorsey actually shows up. And like you said, it's like you mentioned, it's actually Iris and she's just claiming to be Dorsey.
Yeah.
But then right here, I think a facehugger or two
Yes.
shows up.
There is,
And then
I want to touch on that a little bit because Gabe is sharing some knowledge. He's telling them that, like, because there's like gas and stuff leaking in here in this place, and he's like, the facehuggers, they'll probably be up high above the gas, so like keep an eye out.
By the way, he also mentions that the gas is intended to be a sedative,
Right.
which is like pumped inside of the tanks.
Yeah.
So it works then, but when it's out in the open, you can breathe it and it's fine.
Right, because you're not getting a concentrated dose. It's it's open air, so it doesn't have the same effect. But
yeah,
I like that little bit of like the facehuggers are going to be up high, so like watch out, and they are right because they drop down out of the ceiling tiles, and he like blows one away, tells them to guard their faces.
And one of them almost gets a face hugger, and right before it latches on, Cruz pulls it off and they shoot it.
Yeah.
But they shoot at it, but it scurries away, and one of the dudes is like, "Oh, it's trapped in that room. I'll go get it." And as he's running towards the door slides open and a fucking xenomorph comes out.
Yeah, it does.
And I believe it impales the guy through the chest with its tail. Then when he's lying on the ground, it leans over and with its hand literally rips the guy's chest open.
Yeah, man, it's gnarly. That is and it's again, it's weird perspective-y stuff because we're like, that was the final page of issue 2 was the xenomorph grabbing the guy. Issue 3 literally starts with the guy's chest getting ripped open.
Yeah, like the xenomorph is like standing over the guy. Well, his dead body, but later on we find out he's not dead yet. But like he's standing there and everyone's going, "Oh no." And also, that reminds me, before we move on to issue 3, the very end of issue 2, I believe, is where that absolutely hilarious Dorsey/Irish shot is, because like the three of them are lined up in the background and they're shooting at, I don't remember if it's a face hugger or the xenomorph coming at them, and Iris has this look of surprise on her face, like eyes wide, mouth agape, like hands on the side of her head.
That's too fucking funny.
And like when you're just looking at the panel, it looks fine, but if you zoom in and look at that section, it looks real bad, and it's very funny.
It does. That is in issue 3 proper. That is the first page.
Oh, it is in
3.
issue. Okay, I thought that was the very end of issue 2. Sorry.
Issue 2 literally ends with Cruz saying it ripped out his ribs, and Dorsey Iris saying, "You shouldn't have come here. None of us should have come here." So at least you kind of fucking realize you fucked up, right? But yeah, so the guy who got his ribs ripped out by the xenomorph is still alive.
That's Lewandowski, by the way.
Lewandowski. Okay.
I literally don't remember what the other guy's name is.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't. You're right.
This guy keeps like he's crying for his mom. He keeps like Lewandowski he's like, "Mom, I can see my mom, don't let it
because he's dying, and a lot of people do that when they're dying."
I'm not criticizing for him, but this xenomorph here at the bottom of that page where they're shooting at it with its arms spread, like that is art. I think that he that's the same xenomorph as the top. He's just mirrored it. So he reused the same xenomorph drawing on the same page. And then I'm sure he used that one also in the annual, I think.
Yeah, he probably did.
It looks very familiar. Anyway, this is becoming like a scavenger hunt. I don't know. I think I'm gonna lay off criticizing the art. I think I've made my point.
I was going to say, it's only becoming a scavenger hunt because you're actively going out of your way to choose to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to lay off.
So basically, the gist of what happens here is that this drone kills Lewandowski, and then the other two open up on it, and the drone gets pissed off, and just as it's about to attack them, turns out Lewandowski isn't quite so dead, and he picks up his gun and shoots the xenomorph. So the xenomorph stops attacking them and turns around and grabs Lewandowski and just drags him off into the rest of the complex.
But how is he going to he can't have a chest burster in him. His chest is already bursted.
That is correct. Yes. I mean, that is
it's dumbass alien.
I mean, yeah, they don't have since that's not pointed out in the comic, they don't ever address that. That's just who it is that gets taken away.
Yeah. So maybe it's just a snack. Maybe the xenomorph's just kind of hungry, right?
I believe this is the point where there is a flashback to his mission from 20 years prior.
Yeah, basically he and the other soldier and Iris sort of rally and try to get it clear, and then he cuts into the 20 years earlier flashback. Yeah.
And the important part about this flashback, this section of it, is that they introduce the Corcoran Highland goat.
Super
which
important. Yeah.
Which, well, I mean, it's not completely not important.
It is important because we hear about this stuff happening all the time. This is the first time I think that we really see it.
Yeah, because basically the Corcoran Highland goat, it exists in this comic to be the explanation for where the alpha that appears later in the comic comes from.
Or just where the xenomorphs come from in general, right? Because we hear about like the xenomorphs were not just breeding in humans, but also in the livestock on Hadley's Hope and like all of that stuff. But we never get to see them like actually, like with the exception of Alien 3, actually like dealing with a face hugger on an animal. So like, yeah, I liked this detail.
So they come across a herd of Corcoran Highland goats, like, you know, locked in this room, and the goats had like been stuck in there for so long that they've like started eating the dead ones, which, because it's a goat, implies that they're not actually carnivorous. And so they've been doing this for so long that they've been here for so long that they're desperate enough that they started eating meat. But they notice that all of the goats have like these slice marks on their face,
right,
that no one knows what to make of it. And later on, we find out that it's marks left by face huggers.
Sure.
Which I gotta fucking call bullshit on that.
We've seen that in other stuff, that they leave marks on the head.
To my understanding,
yeah,
we've only ever seen that in stuff that was released after this comic, because when I read this comic, I went, what? Since when did face huggers leave marks on people? That's never happened before.
Yeah, I feel like it's been talked about, right?
I can say right now that when I read this comic, that was the first time this concept had ever entered my brain, because like, I don't, like, maybe I missed it, but I don't remember ever seeing any marks on Kane. You know,
I'm not sure. I think it had wrapped around his neck. So I thought that they talked about him having some swelling and stuff around his neck. In terms of,
well, yeah, but these marks aren't on the neck. They're on the face where the legs would be attached to your head.
Yeah, I need we're not going to try to research this now. I remember hearing about this, like having bruising on the face from the fingers. If it was in a book or in a different comic or something, I'm not sure.
And see, that's the thing. It's like, even if that was the explanation, I would theoretically be able to accept that, and maybe they just didn't do it in the other ones. But these aren't bruises, man. These are cuts. Like, the wounds on these goats' faces are bleeding.
But we don't know anything about these things. Like, first of all, I didn't read this as them. I know they say, oh, they're eating their dead. I think that was just them misinterpreting the fact that one of these things had a chest burster pop out of it already. And they all had these red marks around their faces that looked like blood, as if they were eating blood.
Again, you know? I was mentioning that because at that point in the narrative, that is what they believed was happening.
But these things might just be like real fucking tender. Or maybe they had face huggers jump on them, but they were like freaking out and like smashing their faces in and like causing the xenomorph or causing the face huggers to bleed. And that's what scarred their faces. I don't know. I get what I 100% get what you're saying. Like, it is a weird representation of this.
Yeah, like
I bought it. Like, I just bought it.
Like, the way it played to me was that they were implying that when a face hugger latches onto something, the leg claws leave marks on your face, and I was like, this is literally the first alien thing I've ever seen that depicts that. So I don't know like why they think this is an idea I should already be familiar with.
Yeah, I think it probably is something lacking in the artwork again. I'm just gonna say like a little artistic license here taken by by somebody who doesn't know how to draw a goat, which is why they had to then make it an alien goat.
But anyway, after that,
Yeah.
This is the scene where the dude from the beginning of the issue shows up again.
Right.
This is a guy, I don't remember the guy's name, but but his granddaughter's name is Trucy, or maybe Trudy. I don't remember which one it is.
Trudy is the granddaughter. This guy's name is Mitch. Okay.
Mitch. Okay.
Yeah, Mitcho Poppins for all the They Made Another One fans out there.
That's right. That's right. And so they meet up with Mitch, and he's like, oh, like, you know, we're pals. You know, his daughter or his granddaughter was like friends with my sons when they were little or whatever. So we'll get him out. And like while they were talking, he notices the like scar marks on the guy's face and goes, oh, no, he has a face hugger. So when Mitch turns around, Cruz just point blanks him directly in the back of the head and blows his head off.
This was wild because first of all, these marks look a little bit more like you would think that they would. They're more like general swelling, not like it was cut open or anything. Yeah,
that's part of the reason why I was so confused about when it was shown on the goats, because it's like I said, I've never seen anything in the Alien franchise like talk about the face hugger leaving marks.
Right.
But if they were to, I would expect them to look the way they do on Mitch, not the way they looked like on the goats, because those were like cuts and they had blood on them.
Yeah.
You know, like I would expect them to look like how this guy's looks like.
Right. So another thing, Mitch, I liked this scene. This scene worked for me. It was emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we've got Mitch here saying, I saw her, Gabe. She's looking for you. And he says, you know, the one in the dark, referring again to, what did we call her?
The goddess.
The goddess, right. The one in the dark. And he's sort of, you know, Gabe is having a reaction to this. And he says, grab your coat. Let's go find Trudy. And that is the implication there, that if you had a face hugger, you see her, right? That's what this is implying.
That is what the comic implies. Right. Yes. Like after you have a face hugger implant a chest burster in you, like the coma you're in, you dream of this goddess creature.
Right.
And also when he says, you know, she's waiting for you, like when he says that, that's when Gabe realizes, oh no, he has a chest burster in him. Now I have to kill him.
Yeah, and he says, grab your coat. Let's go find Trudy. Let's go find your granddaughter, right? And he's like, yeah, she's got to be.
Yeah, and then he turns around and fucking Gabe domes him.
I mean, it was merciful, you know, but just wild to see.
The other soldier freaks the fuck out and he's like, oh my God, why did you kill him? That guy said he was your friend. And I'm like, you just really don't understand what's going on here, do you, dog?
Right. And then Iris pulls her gun and Gabe's like, I knew it. Took you long enough to reveal yourself. And she's like, oh, good. We're done pretending now. You know, this scene in the comic, this is my favorite moment in the 3 issues we read for this episode. Yeah, this was good. I like this too.
Because like the two of them have the way the panels are structured is Iris is on the left, Gabe is on the right. The both of them are pointing guns at each other. And in the middle is that one other soldier, and he's freaking out because like after Gabe shoots Mitch, the chest burster like starts popping and like coming out of the guy's chest.
This rule.
And so this soldier is freaking out about like the alien coming out of the corpse of Mitch, while Gabe and Iris are just like discussing their problems with each other.
Yeah.
And so there's this conversation going on, and like in the middle of it, the soldier keeps on interjecting, guys, who gives a fuck about your problems? There's like an alien. What are we gonna do? And they just completely ignore him and continue to talk about their problems with each. I loved that so much. It was really extremely funny.
And then when the chest burster bursts, Gabe tries to like drop this containment terrarium that he has with him on it to like collect the chest burster.
Yeah, it's a bucket, but it's a square. Yeah.
Sure. And he like hits the button to like gas the thing, and as he does that, Iris runs off and calls him a fascist. You know, and the chest burster, meanwhile, doesn't want to get captured, so it
he pulls an insanely rad move that I went, oh
yeah.
fuck, that rules.
This was awesome. There's no bottom on this sample thing, right? So the chest burster burrows back into the body and then shoots out the mouth of Mitch.
I so like it never occurred to me that they could like they would even like it would they would think to do that.
Yeah.
That when I saw that, the way my brain first registered that scene was that this guy somehow had 2 chest bursters in him, and I was like, whoa, where did that second one come from? And then I looked at it again and realized that in that first panel, the noise it was making was indicating it was chewing back into the guy's body, and I went, whoa, that rules.
Because it's one drawing with a black line diagonal across it to separate it into 2 events, 2 panels, right? It's really weird.
Yeah, like
to do that.
Like
but
it's technically
works.
2 panels, but it's one panel with the panel divider down the middle of it.
Yeah.
And there's a chest burster in both panels. So if you just glance at it, it looks like there's 2 chest bursters.
Yeah, it took me a minute to figure it out as well. I was like, wait, what's going on? Is the second one popping out? Oh, no, it's the other one climbing. But then I was like, that's such a fun idea.
And it like the chest burster leaps at the other soldier, and the guy's like, oh God, get it off. And so Cruz, I think he grabs it and like throws it out the door. I think.
No, Cruz wants it. The Marine's trying to shoot it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes.
The other soldier, not the Marine, the soldier's trying to shoot it, and Cruz is like, no, we need it alive, and the thing attacks this soldier. And they kind of like knock it off in the guy's hand. It's still in there, and an explosion happens. The door has now been busted open with a big boom, and a xenomorph is climbing into the room at the same time as all of this is happening.
Yeah, like a full-grown, like a regular drone guy.
So they start trying to shoot it, and then suddenly the big xenomorph is engulfed in flames.
And he turns around and runs off screeing.
Like they do. And who's standing there with a flamethrower?
A weirdly drawn bishop.
The very same bishop he was starting his therapy sessions with.
Yeah, that is correct. I believe it is that same one. Yes.
Yeah, the one on Epsilon Station. And he repeats a line. That's the beauty of off-world assignments. There's always something you don't know. End of issue 3.
Yeah, that's how issue 3 ends. That's the final panel, is a full panel or a full page shot of Bishop standing there with a flamethrower.
Right as shit's starting to get good, right?
It took like 2.5 issues, but yeah.
But it did, yeah. Yeah, man, this is a frustrating story arc.
Look, it's fine, okay?
Yeah.
It's not great. It's definitely not my favorite Marvel comic, but it's fine.
It's fine, and I think it could have been so much better. I mean, we'll see how this thing finishes off when we dig through the rest of it. But I'm gonna ask you the thing that I've asked you. We didn't ask it in the last couple of Thaw episode or issue episodes because we knew the answer already. But like as we were reading Icarus and as we were reading the first few issues of Thaw, we asked ourselves the question of, if we didn't have to cover this for the show, would we keep reading this series? Right. So,
all right, now,
yeah.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
When you say, would I keep reading it? Do you mean the 3 issues we read, or just like issue 1 or whatever?
Let's take it 1 issue at a time.
All right.
Because I can answer for myself but if you know, go for it.
If I didn't have to read it for the show and I read issue 1, I probably would not keep reading it.
Same here, honestly.
If I did keep reading it and read issue 2, I probably would not keep reading it after that.
Yeah. Same here.
But if I continued to anyway and read issue 3, I like the ending of issue 3 strong enough or well enough that I probably would read the next issue.
Yeah. So let's put this in the context if this were on my pull list, right, at the comic book store. Or if I just walked in and they had issues 1 through 3 on the shelf and I kind of flipped through and been like, this looks a little weird, but I don't know, I'll give it a shot. You know, it probably would have sat at the bottom of my reading pile. But if I had access to the first 3 issues, and I read them, I would have continued with the series. But if I had just had access to the first issue or the second issue, I would have probably stopped it there. I probably would have
basically what you're trying to say is after the fact, knowing where it goes, you'd probably continue. But if you bought this when it first came out, you would do, I believe it was Bob from the Flock that said that he read the first issue or 2 of this and then kind of bounced off. It may have been him, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
shout out to Bob or Connor or Dewey.
Yeah, depending on which one it was that said it. But if I had been in that situation, if I had bought issue 1 when it first came out, I would not have read any of the other issues in this arc.
Especially because issue 1 was a longer one too. It was like 30 pages almost.
It sure was. It was noticeably longer than the rest of them.
32. I don't know. It was an extra large issue.
Yeah.
And it was not great.
It's not that good. I mean, it's not terrible, and there is cool stuff in it, but it's not good enough to hook me.
That's the thing. I think that there are a lot of good and interesting ideas in this. I think it's taking a little bit of time to get to them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like by issue 3, we should have an idea of what Project Alpha actually is. And I guess we sort of do through context clues, but a lot of that I think is hindsight as well from having read the series before.
Yeah, from already knowing what it is. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that this first half is a little bloated and not enough is happening. And now it's getting interesting. So I'm looking forward to finishing this one out, And
another problem that I don't want to say it's necessarily a problem when the comics do it, but it's a problem when this comic does it, is especially because that first issue is longer than the rest of them are. There's a whole lot of scenes of people just standing around talking, which is not what you want when the human art looks like this.
Yeah, which reminds me of a correction I have to make. I believe I have said multiple times on this show that the Alien Revival storyline has a different artist.
Mm-hmm.
Bad news, man.
Yeah, it's fine.
It is Salvador LaRocca. I don't know why I thought it was different or remembered it as being different. I don't know if maybe it's better because again, that annual seemed better. This seems terrible. The Bloodlines artwork is terrible, but I will still go to bat and say what we read in the annual, a lot of that looked fine, if not pretty good. The humans we obviously had a problem with still, right?
I mean, the artwork on everything except the humans looked better in the annual, but in a weird way, the humans looked worse in the annual than they do in this book. Yeah, I don't know how.
I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I don't. But I also absolutely believe it. It's not fresh in my mind,
Well, there's 2 panels from the annual that come to mind. Okay. That one guy, Mallory or whatever his name was, who was supposed to be the original host of the Facehugger before he got killed.
Right.
There is a panel where it is a close-up of his face while he's strapped to the chair and he's crying and begging for his life. And the guy's face is so just badly drawn that I literally cringe every single time I see it.
Sure.
And there is another panel from the annual of nearish the beginning, just a little bit before that Mallory panel,
right,
where where we talked about where the soldiers are standing around and just making fun of Charlie all the time.
Oh yeah. That was
one of the soldiers. It's just a straightforward shot of his face.
Yeah,
and you can tell that LaRocca literally drew the oval of the guy's head, then drew all the facial features and added everything else afterwards, because the spot on the side of the oval where the ears connect, he literally didn't even erase the line of the oval where the ears connect to the guy's face.
God, if my comics app hadn't just crashed, I'd go look at this right now. But
and not even to mention, like, you know, the Wayland Yutani panel in the beginning of the issue where everyone's face just looks bad.
Yeah.
It's like I think the artwork looked like all of the non-human artwork looks better in the annual, but all of the human artwork looks worse in comparison to this book. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. This is
But on the counterpoint, you sent me a screenshot that I'm literally looking at right now of the final panel of issue 2 of, well, not the final panel, but like the Xenomorph standing over Lewandowski, like holding the dude's rib cage.
Yeah.
And look at that fucking Xenomorph, man. That is top notch shit. It looks so good.
There's a lot of detail, but the perspective is so weird. Like its head is so much closer to us, you know, like it's deformed. The perspective is rough, but like I mean, unless it's just an especially weird looking Xenomorph, but in the other panels it was a normal one. But like, but there's a lot of cool detail in this. Like that's why I clipped this out to make it artwork, I think.
I should point out that when I say it's A+ shit and it looks really good, what I mean is, like, you know, the detail and the styling and stuff. Like now that you mention it, I guess the perspective does look a little weird, but like to me, what looks weird about it is how much better the Xenomorph looks than the background.
Right. Yeah.
Because the background just kind of looks washed out and, in video game terms, pre-rendered.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Whereas the Xenomorph, like, legitimately looks phenomenal. I love it so much.
Okay, I'm flipping through Revival now, and it looks like a different artist, honestly. Like it is a significant.
Well, that's good.
In my opinion, I could be wrong. It looks like a significant improvement.
Good.
I'm scanning through. Like I can definitely still see this as LaRocca. You know, like it's not like they changed artists or anything. It looks better.
Good. We'll
have a lot to talk. Actually, he's doing different tricks in that. We'll have a lot to talk about in there, because I think that the book is playing maybe to his artistic strengths a little better.
I was gonna say, because in just a couple of issues, a couple of episodes rather, we'll finally get to it. So
right, but first we'll have to wrap up Bloodlines.
And speaking of the wrap up for these first 3 issues, is that it's fine. The storyline isn't particularly interesting, but I mean, it's cool enough, and there are some details here and there that make it more interesting than it seems on its face. But like you said earlier, there aren't really any characters worth rooting for.
There are no characters worth rooting for.
The storyline is kind of pedestrian. The artwork on the humans does not look good. And it's fine with a capital F.
It's goddess, this weird goddess thing that they got going on, it's a bold stance to take for Marvel Comics relaunching the Alien comic book universe, their own Alien comic book universe, in the wake of the extremely long-running Dark Horse series that is beloved by many people, myself included.
And the first thing Marvel does is put a sexy babe alien in the comic.
And the first thing they do is put, I mean, look, sexy, your words, not mine.
well, see, here's the thing. That is not meant to imply either way that I do or do not find her sexy, but it's a shorthand for stereotypically feminine in the way that Marvel Comics female characters always are.
Right. The curvy. Yeah, the curvy figure.
Yeah,
right.
She definitely has an hourglass figure. Yes,
that hourglass figure. That's the term. I'm thinking of the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way book that I have. Yeah, my brother and I had growing up, and there's like a Sue Storm in there, and it's like, okay, we were children looking at this, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I say it's a sexy lady, that is not necessarily meant to imply I think she's sexy.
But
Although I
somebody
do,
out there does.
although I do know some listeners out there that would, and I can think of their names right now, but I'm not gonna say them on the show and call them out.
Goddess
But the listeners out
Xenomorph.
there, those listeners out there, you know who you are.
Good news, everyone. There are results if you search Goddess Xenomorph Rule 34.
Love it.
Yeah.
Phenomenal stuff.
It does seem to be general xenomorphy stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not specifically the goddess, but
yeah, I'm going to cut this line of discussion off at the pass because we don't need to have it on the show.
the people who want that have already found it.
That is correct. And if they haven't, they're going to go look for it now that they're hearing it in this episode.
Right.
So let me ask you,
Yeah.
do you have any final thoughts that have not already been mentioned about the first 3 issues of Alien Bloodlines?
I don't think so. The first half isn't working for me, but I really want it to. The art is detracting from it and the pacing is detracting from it, but I think that there's a good story in here that's underneath all of that stuff, and I don't think that makes it a good comic because you shouldn't have to dig that deep. If you have to say give it 3 issues and it's a 6-issue story, right?
Yeah. Yeah, get through the first half of it and then it'll start to hit. Nah.
I can forgive if it's like give it 2, right? If like the first issue does a lot of setup and the second issue is what really hooks you, but there's still got to be something to hook you in the first issue, and
Yeah, there still has to be a hook. Yeah,
there just wasn't really enough of a hook at the beginning of this one.
I will agree with you though that what you just said, where it's like there is something here, like you know, whenever we hit something like this that isn't great or doesn't work or we're kind of like about it, I'm always thinking, how do you fix this to make it into something we would like? And I don't think this comic is a complete ditch it all and start from the beginning. I do think there is something here that'll work with a few tweaks here and there, but those tweaks aren't here, so this is what we're stuck with, you know?
Right. And I think that this was Philip Kennedy Johnson getting his feet wet with the franchise, right?
Because as we pointed out, every arc gets better.
we really loved Icarus. I remember really liking Revival, thinking Revival was a huge improvement over this. I know you haven't read it yet, so I'm really interested in what you think.
And he wrote all 3 of them. So each arc he writes, he gets better and better at writing an Alien comic. So it's one of those things where this comic isn't great, but if this is what needed to happen for him to make the much better other 2, I'm willing to sacrifice 1 arc of a comic, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I think overall he probably has written more Alien comics that I like versus ones he's written that I'm not crazy about. So
yeah, for sure.
But I think part of it also, this is just my last thing to touch on the artwork, is I think that some of the nuance in the storytelling is getting lost in the artwork. I think there is stuff that I'm missing, stuff that isn't being transmitted clearly enough because the artwork, like for example, that chest burster popping back into the body to pop out of its throat, right?
Cool idea, but it would have been cooler if the panel structure made it more clear what was happening.
Exactly. Yeah. We were both confused by that at first. And then it was like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
Like I said, when
now.
I saw it, I thought the guy had 2 chest bursters in it. And it took me several seconds of going over it until I finally realized what the comic was depicting. And it's like a moment like that, you should immediately be able to tell what's happening.
Yeah, because it's rad. So there's things like that. There's things I think that the visuals are blocking some of the storytelling here. Anyway, so like that's why I've been kind of extra cranky about the artwork on this episode. But you know, we'll see how this thing finishes out because I'm into it now.
Yeah, I mean, and plus, the big bad hasn't even shown up yet, so
that'll happen on the next episode where we will be covering Alien Bloodlines issues 4 through 6. Kenny, what do you got going on?
I'm just chilling, playing video games, going to work. You know how it is.
Sure.
And if you want to see me extremely rarely talk about those things online, I do have a Twitter account. My handle is at CYHOBBEZ. My handle on that, or I use the same handle rather, is what I meant to say, on Blue Sky as well, and on the PSN. So if you want to like send me a friend request or message me or something, you can. I know I've said that on multiple episodes, and this is not me like calling out for it. I'm just saying if you're trying to find me online, those are the main 3 places you can find me.
Follow him. Get him to play Dead by Daylight with you on the PlayStation Network. He's really into it.
Oh yeah, I love it so much. I'm about to fire it up right now as soon as we're done. This is me looking around suspiciously.
You can find me on Instagram at Final Neal Retro and Blue Sky at Final Neal, Xbox Live Final Neal, and there's something else, right?
Did you already say Instagram?
Yeah, that's what I led with. And
Okay.
twitch.tv/Final Neal. For my birthday, I did a Sega bass fishing on the Dreamcast stream that also
sure did.
That also had some Crazy Taxi and I think 20 minutes of Spider-Man and then a bunch of Sega Marine fishing as well. Go watch that.
All the listeners out there who didn't watch it, tune in and check it out. It's great. He has a reel cam that literally it's a camera focused on the fishing rod controller that he uses.
Yes.
But before he starts using it, he puts a fucking life or flotation vest on, and it's
jacket.
extremely funny.
Yeah, go check out the VOD on that. And I'll put that on the YouTube somewhere because the VODs disappear from Twitch. But yeah, Kenny, you were on the stream as well via voice on Discord. Danny from the Next Issue podcast was on talking in there, and Damien, who writes a bunch of stuff on the internet, director of the movie Reunion of Champions, also hopped on voice to help me celebrate my birthday. Thank you, Kenny. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks everybody else for hanging out as well. Go check out that.
Yeah, it was
VOD.
a good time. We were cracking jokes about Echo the Dolphin. It was great.
It was fun, and I'm gonna do more things like that over at Twitch. So yeah, so follow me there. Where can people find this show on the internet, Kenny?
Let's see if I can remember this checklist off the top of my head. I usually can, but sometimes I forget something. So we have the website, crewexpendable.net.
Yep.
We have the Twitter account where the handle is at crewexpendapod.
Yep.
We have the Instagram account where the handle is at crewexpendablepod. We have an email address where you can, well, as the name implies, email us. And that email address is mother@crewexpendable.net.
Yeah.
And we also have a YouTube page, and that is youtube.com/@crewexpendable.
Yes. At Crew Expendable. Yeah. So when we stream Dead by Daylight, you'll be able to go to our YouTube channel and watch that live or catch the replay. And we will be back next episode to finish off Alien Bloodlines. So until then, stay frosty.